Okay, I'll just listen to it then, Joss, on your end.
Okay.
I feel like what's happening with audio? Is that just me? Good morning. Wow. Good morning, everybody. To the November 9th episode of the WCM Fireside Chats. My name is Cara Brodegam. Our usual hosts, Brian Searle from Insider Perks and Ben Quiggle from Woodall's Campground Management Magazine, are here with me today. And I've also got Shane Devenish from CCRVC and Joss Penny from the BC Lodging and Campground Owners Association. And then it looks like, yeah, we've got lots of campground owners in the audience here today too. So we are doing a special, to me anyway, special Canada only episode today. So I'm excited to kind of have a conversation and chat with you guys just about how 2020 went and plans for 2021 and how everybody's feeling going into that. So I guess, I just want to start by saying, like, I think we all really had no idea how 2020 was going to go. We had lots of balls thrown at us this year, and I think overall we're incredibly fortunate to have experienced the way things went. I don't know if that's a blanket statement. Maybe I know there are campgrounds out there who did really struggle this year, and I don't want to minimize that at all, but I think, especially in certain places, specific to BC, I'm going to say, especially since all these snowbirds are kind of stuck at home, I think BC is well poised to be pretty successful this year and into 2021. What do you think, Jeff? Do you agree?
Yeah, I certainly agree with you, Cara. I mean, we've been lucky. I mean, the weather today would dispute that. It's 1 degree in Vancouver and snow, so that's pretty early this time of year. But no, we've had quite a few campgrounds that have expanded the number of sites they have, and we've also had some new entrants that have come into the winter camping. And so I think many of them are going to have quite a reasonable season. There are still vacancies. I mean, if you go into the North Okanagan and into the Kootenays, there's some vacancies, and there's still some vacancies on west coast of Vancouver Island, simply because the cost is a little bit more. We did a survey, and the average daily fee is a low of $17.50 up to a high of $40 per day. So it depends on your budget as to what you want to stay at.
Sure. I was actually talking to a campground owner on the island too, who had some sites he'd like to fill for the winter time, and he was just talking about barriers to access because you've got a ferry and stuff over there. I think that's a big factor. I'm sure it's not cheap to ferry an RV over.
No, you're looking at if you've got like a 48-foot like I have, I'd be $350 each way.
Your RV is 48 feet long.
Oh, well, no, with the vehicle, because you got your vehicle in that, and it's the total length when you go on ferry. So when you put those
a little bit more manageable. I was thinking how you were taking corners with it.
Oh, I know, but I'm looking at the total length, which is what they measure. Your vehicle's 20 feet, and then you've got additional charges and per foot. There are sailings they do have that they try and encourage you to go on, late night sailings, midweek sailings that will reduce that cost, but it's still a cost because you're taking up real estate on the ferry deck.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Joss, you can keep the 1 degree weather, because I mean, right now it's like I'm in southern Michigan and it's 65, I think. So you can have the 1 degree weather. We'll let you keep that. So
don't forget it's Celsius, so that would make it 34, I guess.
34, okay, all right.
Yeah,
you can still keep that.
Yeah,
I'll keep the 65. So
guys, I win. It's minus 18 Celsius here right now. I win. Nobody trumps that.
Nobody wants to trump that.
That's one of the reasons why those snowbirds come here, because a lot of people from Alberta and Saskatchewan, they don't want to face minus 20s, minus 30s wind chills. That's Celsius we're talking. And then even a 2 or 3 degree on the coast, that's much more palatable. And it's usually a green experience here.
Yeah, well, Mark Jaycock is rubbing it in that you guys have 19 some degrees out there in Ontario.
Yes, it was a great weekend too.
Yeah.
How nice for you.
Coming.
How nice for you. But probably, I mean, I feel like most of the campgrounds out in Ontario are already transitioned to close for the season, unfortunately, right? Those beautiful weekends lead into the fall are missed opportunities, I think.
Yeah, most of the private campgrounds are closed right after Thanksgiving or this past weekend, but you know, the provincial parks seem to be still open up for a little bit longer yet. So
I see.
And that's not any different than down here in the U.S. I think a lot of parks closed, like the 31st was the end date. I saw some parks closing before. So, I mean, they're looking out their windows. But I imagine a lot of campground owners, with how busy the summer was down here, they're just happy to be done for this year. So,
yeah, I think it was such a unique dynamic of like being incredibly busy but short-staffed. I think definitely I'm hearing from lots of campground owners about things like burnout and being really exhausted and but then at the same time really transitioning planning to 2021 and getting strategic about how to go into that with preparation and those kinds of things. Which you know, I'd be interested to hear from any of our campground owners on the call or from Joss or Shane, if you've heard anything from anybody just about preparing for 2021 and what that looks like. I think we all were so thrown off in the springtime with the timing that it feels strange to plan this far in advance maybe. But I just wonder if anybody is, especially with things like staffing and stuff that was really tough last year.
Well, I've heard from two of my members that have actually had to hire new staff in October because they're so busy in the winter. And they've never had to hire staff in October. Usually they're letting them off. And I've heard a couple others that have moved to a 4-day week with their existing staff. So they each get 3 days off so they're not burnt out. So we are starting to see some strategies because they're really concerned about next year. Obviously, you're peering forward to 21. I mean, the big question is vaccine. Yes or no? If the vaccine's here, then we're into much more normal and the borders will be open and we'll have more travel. And if people have got it, if the vaccine isn't here, then I think we're looking perhaps at a season very similar to what we just had.
Yeah, lots of domestic travel and those kinds of things.
But by all accounts, either way, it was good, right?
Yeah.
Most of you.
For the most part, yeah, I think it's really location dependent. Definitely there were regions of the country that definitely struggled and had a tough go. And I think, you know, in some parts of the country, campgrounds closed entirely because, you know, they were concerned about risk and you know, potentially exposing people. I heard of campgrounds that closed before even regulations allowed us to open back up, so and never did reopen for the season. So there are lots of variables included, but overall, I think, I mean, between things like appetite to get out, but then also the crazy RV sales numbers, you know, dealers are seeing and things like that, I think it was kind of a perfect storm that none of us saw coming. Lori's saying for 2021, we're doing similar to last year. We have reverted our campsites to annual spots and had no problem filling them. Yeah. So that's interesting to me too, is the amount of campgrounds kind of transitioning over to seasonal or even just doing things differently than they ever had before, right?
What have you seen the same in Canada? Has there been the same number of new campers, like new RV buyers?
I definitely think, well, number one, I think it's early. We haven't seen a ton of demographic numbers out specific to Canada to really measure that. But I do think based on the way RV sales went, I mean, that it just correlates to make that kind of sense that there's lots of new campers, definitely. Mark's saying definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Mark, I don't know if you want to come on. Brian, will you invite Mark on? I'd love to hear how his. And we talked to him early in the spring or early right after reopening. I'd love to hear how his season went. I know they just closed.
Yeah. I know here in British Columbia that we've actually encountered quite a few new developments. So people actually developing new campgrounds. So that's one thing that's come of it. And the other thing is in the election manifesto, the NDP are on record as looking at expanding the services in provincial parks and campgrounds.
Okay.
So that's one angle, but I'd like to hear from Mark.
Yeah, and I imagine Canada had quite a few. I think I was reading where Canadian parks were saying they were having quite a few local people come and more Canadians coming to their parks than maybe in years past.
We had a local only order at the beginning, so it could only be Colombians, and then they sort of relaxed a bit, allowing Albertans and rest of Canada to come. But I mean, that was a bit of an angst between provinces. But I think it's fair to say that yes, and next year I think BC parks will be the same. Their reservation system will be BC residents only, and it will be on their first come first served basis for everybody else.
Definitely. Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm good. How's everyone?
Good. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having
me.
Yeah, you guys closed up last week?
We closed up 2 weeks ago, actually, the weekend prior to Thanksgiving. Sorry. When we bought the park a few years ago, it had traditionally closed Thanksgiving, but my wife and I just decided, well, we want to spend time with our family at Thanksgiving. So we closed the week before, but of course, nobody saw their family this year. So,
Right. Yeah, what a shame. So overall, how was your summer?
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, the anxiety about opening first off was tough. I mean, we didn't open until June 12th, so you lose. In Ontario, we lost the May 2-4 weekend, of course, the opening weekend. So we lost about a month and a half because we usually open end of April. But once the campgrounds opened, of course, I mean, it was game on. We had so many people doing 3 and 4 day stays as opposed to your traditional 2 day stays, weekend stays. We saw a lot of Tuesday to Thursday camping. But it was, you guys were talking about how owners are tired and tuckered out because of, how hard they worked. I mean, it was also just due to the anxiety of not knowing how to operate, how many people can you let into your camp store? Where do you put hand sanitizer dispensers? Where do you get hand sanitizer? I mean, those sort of things were tough. Managing the public pool was a bit of a logistical challenge and caused stress for us, caused stress for the guests. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're definitely down from last year because it was hard to make up that month and a half. But I think we really did okay. Compared to what we thought we'd end up like, earlier in the year.
Right.
Mark, sorry, Kara. Mark, could you just give us a rundown of what your park is? How many sites? And
that's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you bet. So we're a small family campground in Woodstock, Ontario, which is southwest Ontario, positioned perfectly between sort of Buffalo and Detroit. So we get a lot of Americans that kind of cut through and stop at our park. So we have we're about 25 seasonal sites. We're about 40 to 50 overnight sites, and then we do have 22 year-round park model units as well. So we've got kind of a bit of everything. But as far as kind of your traditional camping, we've got the 25 seasonal and about 50 overnight. So
in a normal year, what's the demographic of your campground? Do you see a lot of U.S. tourists, or is it mainly Ontario or?
Yeah, it's definitely mostly local. I'd say, we're nicely positioned between sort of 3 or 4 sort of larger city centers. So we get a lot of people that are sort of 40 to 60 minutes away. But we do see a lot of Americans coming through. We see a lot of French Canadians also from Quebec who are traveling through from the States and, either going down south or heading back to Quebec. But it is, I'd say 80% probably, local families.
That's great. I might ask you this, Mark, because you're out in Ontario. In the chat box here, I have a question. Did other Ontario campgrounds find that a lot of transient campers added on people to their reservation after initial booking and then wanted visitors? Did you see an appetite for that in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for others, but I mean, with ours, I think one of the things we did well, and I'm sure other campgrounds did the same, is we set the expectations right from the get-go. On our website, it was black and white saying, here's how we're operating during COVID. They got a pre-visit confirmation. They got a confirmation reminder. everything was laid out. Now, it was a lot of stuff, so I mean, not everybody read it all, but we didn't find that so much. We did have a lot of people saying, "Oh, can I have guests come?" And we didn't allow that. And we, people generally were pretty understanding, but we just sort of said, no guests. And then we opened that up a little later in the year, but everyone had waivers to sign. So by that point, I think so many people were just kind of used to kind of the COVID world that, the way it operated here at the campground was a big difference from going to the drugstore or grocery store, So
I think in a lot of cases, campers were so just thankful to be able to be out and things that they were happy to follow any regulations. I didn't hear of a ton of conflict and things like that, which I think was a big concern when all of these regulations were being put into place. I think operators were kind of overwhelmed with like, how am I going to police this? How am I going to make sure that all of these people are, distancing and not congregating and all these kinds of things. But I think in general, just wanting to be able to be there made sure that everybody was compliant, which was really great. I didn't hear of conflict at all, which I'll be honest, I'm happy about.
I heard the opposite. We had a lot of new first timers, and no, not the bad, and the behavior was so good that they want to keep the first timers and get rid of the regular. There's the sort of kudos to those people. They read stuff, they behaved, and they were unfamiliar with camping, and therefore they thought that was the normal.
Right. That's interesting too. Yeah, I wanted to ask Shane. Maybe I don't know if maybe this is putting you on the spot about specific to sales and inventory. I'm hearing from dealers out here that there's no or very little inventory on lots and things like that right now. Do we see that hopefully changing in time for sales season in the early spring or late winter?
Well, I'd say we're hoping that it changes, but realistically, I don't think dealers are expecting their inventories to get back to their normal level for the next, it could be up to 12, 16 months.
Right.
Right now, we didn't experience the increases that they saw in the U.S., but we did see some increases retail-wise, but our wholesale numbers are really low. Everybody's looking to replenish their inventory at the same time, and the supply chain is just not allowing inventories to grow right now. So it's going to take a while to get that inventory back. And I think there's some concern for dealers, although they had a good year this year. Are they going to be able to have the inventory to sell next year? And for sure, that's a concern.
Yeah, sorry. And our other magazine is RV Business, and I go to Elkhart, Indiana. I think they make 80% of the world's RVs or whatever. There's just lots full of RVs. Not only manufacturing them, but delivering these RVs is, a little bit. The delivery companies are hiring people like crazy right now because they got to have people that can drive them to the dealerships, and just the whole system right now. They're just on overdrive, trying to get as many people in the factories and with suppliers. Trying to get the supplies in to make the RVs. It's just really backed up. And so hopefully they can just continue to work away at the backlog and get these to dealers. So,
yeah,
absolutely. I think I'm super interested in seeing what the demographics look like. I'm sure, we often see KOA and those types of bigger companies producing great stat reports and things like that. I'm really interested to see what demographics are like for new buyers and new RVers, and I think that kind of information is going to really help campgrounds, plan for 2021 and obviously into the future. Hopefully, the majority of those new RVers continue, even as pandemic stuff starts to come to an end or transition back to a little bit more normal. I am wondering if there's anybody from any of the Atlantic provinces watching who'd want to join us.
If there's not, I can comment on how things were out there, Kara, if there isn't any.
Yeah, please, Shane, please. Well, as we wait, I know you were in touch with lots of operators out there and worked closely with them. Please, any input?
Yeah, they were unique, and I forget who was saying it. Maybe you, Kara, before about. I guess the Atlantic provinces had an Atlantic bubble, so they didn't. They're often reliant on U.S. tourism and other Canadian provinces to go out east, and that just wasn't reality this year. So everybody in the Atlantic kind of stayed very local, and even the Newfoundland campgrounds didn't see for sure the traffic this year. People in the Atlantic didn't want to take the ferry across, where normally, people traveling from the U.S. would, pay that expense just to get to the province. But so they were affected for sure, probably more than any other, region of Canada, just because, they just didn't get that outside the area traffic that they normally did.
Shane, were there provincial campgrounds out east?
Yeah, there. Certain provinces handled things differently. For instance, in PEI, they actually directed their clients to private campground owners and swayed and closed their government-owned campgrounds, versus in Nova Scotia, they were more aggressive, and they actually competed with the private campground owners more so than other years. So, we hope that, the government would, we can work jointly and kind of spread the clients around evenly. But, it was funny how two different provinces handle things differently. Obviously from the private campground side, we like what PEI did more so than what Nova Scotia did.
Have you heard any rumblings for 2021 in terms of keeping the provinces closed up there?
We haven't heard anything yet. They're still, as far as I know, in that Atlantic bubble. Their numbers are growing slightly. They're for sure the lowest in Canada, so they've always remained pretty low. But I think it's too early to tell whether they keep that Atlantic bubble. I know, there's been, even the flights from WestJet into St. John's. I think they canceled that, and it's really going to affect their economy. So, I would expect them to open up. I can't see them to do it again next year. But let's just hope that, we can get our numbers in control so we get a more normal start to next year overall.
Absolutely. I agree. I heard from several campground owners out there that things were really rough this year. And, I think, from CCRVC standpoint, I think we tried to do what we could to really support them in terms of getting domestic travelers to camp local and those kinds of things, with the help of Brian, obviously, too. All the ad campaign stuff that we've been doing. But I think, you can only really do so much, and times are strange. It's tough to get people to push outside their comfort zones when it comes to this stuff. So
I think we had a question at somebody had messaged us before the show and asked us what are some newer preventative measures that campgrounds are taking to ensure a safer season next year so that they'll still be able to reopen on time. Maybe that fits into this discussion, I guess.
Definitely. I'd love to hear feedback on that too.
So I guess like Mark or, Joss or anybody really, I guess, what are campground owners doing to make sure that they're able to open on time in 2021? Is there any threat to them not being able to open on time right now?
Well, I'll take that to start. I mean, I don't think so. I think next year's going to be a lot of what we saw this year. I think one of the key things to do to make sure you open is make sure you got your supplies and all that kind of stuff. But having good relationships with your local health department, with your local mayor, your counselors. I mean, we actually opened a month early, even though we weren't allowed to open. We opened late March for the snowbirds who were all stranded. There was only a few campgrounds in Ontario who were able to do that. We were fortunate, being Southwestern Ontario, we could. But we reached out to our mayor, we reached out to the health department and said, hey, listen, here's what we got to do to help these folks. They got nowhere to go. And by having these good relationships, we're able to do that. So I think next year, it'd be wise for campgrounds to have those conversations in advance prior to opening, and then, stock up on your hand sanitizer while you can.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think logistical stuff like PPE and access to those kinds of things is probably smart to be acquiring over the next several months so that by April, you've got a little stockpile going there. I mean, I don't want to advocate for hoarding or anything, but I think preparations are definitely valuable. I think that's a great suggestion, Mark, to get in contact with specifically your local political leaders and community, health authorities and things like that. Really, really valuable. I think, there's I'm hearing from lots of campgrounds too that are trying to take on some bigger projects, over the winter wherever they can, just so that, oftentimes you see them doing those projects early spring, but I think they're thinking there's going to be kind of a quick influx in the spring after a full winter of everybody being kind of cooped up. And so trying to take on what projects that aren't, really limited by cold weather through the winters is definitely something I'm hearing from too.
I'm hearing too that many of them are developing in their plans a phased approach. Depends on the numbers. If the numbers are really low, then it will be very sort of cleanliness type thing. But if the numbers are really high, they may actually have to shut washrooms still. They may not. They may delay opening the pool. They may delay opening their convenience store. Doing things like that, I think, are still going to be on the table, and they're going to have the phases based upon. So, plus, I said in British Columbia, about 100 parks are already open. So they may not have any ramping up to do. But I think we're going to see more of that. We already saw this year a big pullback from tenting in the private sector. They said, wait a minute, what have we got these tent sites for? Why don't we convert them to RVs and food service? And so that's one of the development things that you're seeing this fall, that there's a big change. They're leaving the tenting to the recreation sites and provincial parks and Parks Canada and saying, wait a minute, we don't need this business because it means we have to maintain a washroom. It's heavy use on us, and it's only a 60-day period that we're really busy, whereas we can get some yield from these sites. And so I think that's a big change that's happened. And I'm also hearing from some people that some of their protocols around laundry, like having appointments, they're going to keep them going forward. Because now, even when COVID stops, because now they can maintain it, it's cleaner, they know who's in there, they're not getting wear and tear, they're not getting vandalism, so all these things are helpful as they move forward.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest surprising thing for me is how much of this stuff people are saying, like, wow, I actually really like this, I enjoy operating this way. Even guests, in a lot of cases, things like pool schedule times and things like that provide for kind of more accessibility, less crowding, those kinds of things that improve those experiences. A lot of operators are planning to keep those in place, regardless of what happens from a COVID perspective. I do want to say, I really think preparations for 2021, membership with your provincial and national associations, I'll do a shameless plug for sure. I think those are huge, super valuable resources for your business, and a great way to stay in touch with what's going on and help, impact things like regulations. And in several of the provinces, the association helped establish the safety guidelines, health and safety guidelines specific to campgrounds. And we did that with the help of operators. I think association membership, if you don't already have one, is super valuable for the new year.
For the suppliers, I feel like Woodall's Campground Management should join all the associations and pay too. Saying,
Yeah, yeah. So, I thought back to Joss's comment on the tent and RV. You know, they're switching the tent sites to RV sites. That's pretty interesting because I think I've seen some owners down here do that. You know, just because of the cleanliness part. It's interesting because I know for the last 4 to 5 years, KOA's report has said that 60% of new campers will try tent camping first. But I have to imagine, you know, we've seen a tremendous amount of new campers this year, and a lot of them are doing RVs. So I wonder if that changes that demographic. You know, maybe 2 years from now, you know, more people are doing the RV thing and less are doing the tent camping to start. So that's kind of an interesting just trend there, I guess. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really changed is the peer-to-peer.
Yes.
It's so easy now to with Outdoorsy or RV Easy to pick up an RV anywhere local and have it on site and not even have to just drive up. And I think that now unlocks the condo market because they can't afford to have an RV and store it from the cities. And so that really is what's going to change.
Yeah.
I will say the rental market is a little pricey. I mean, some of the rentals are a little expensive, so it'll be interesting to see if some of those prices come down on the RV rentals, especially assuming maybe some of these new RV owners could be looking to rent their units and there could be a bunch of rentals available. Maybe the prices come down. I know, you know, if you're doing a huge trip, it can get pretty expensive with an RV rental. So,
but they seem to be renting them. So, I mean,
yeah, I mean, they are. So,
compare it to storage, though. I mean, I have to store my RV because I live in a townhouse and it's $130 a month. You know, when you take that and it's your vacation time, and a lot of people diverted. They couldn't go overseas, so they either bought an RV or rented an RV and took their family on a different trip. They would have spent that money anyway. So they got an experience that they've never had before. And some of them say, and I think they don't think that that's expensive because time you fly somewhere and you have the hotel and all the other goodies that you do when you're on vacation, it's a wash. They're saying it's no. In fact, I had some people who said I could afford to buy an RV because I go away 4 times a year, and then I can flip. I've still got money that left over that I could go travel somewhere else when it opens up.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the rental market opens a whole new demographic, and it's kind of this perfect storm with COVID and being really limited to travel very far. You get access to a portion of the market that wasn't RVing before, and you know, are experiencing vacations and things in a new way. And I think that translates down to campgrounds and the kinds of changes we're seeing in a lot of those as well. You know, they're offering some maybe higher level experiences and packaging with tour operators in their area and things like that to make it more of this kind of vacation feel, which is really interesting.
One thing though I'll say is on the rental market, as an owner, it concerns me. I mean, I think it's great, and the more people that enter the market, that's wonderful. The more people we can get camping, the better. However, on a Friday night, it's their first time ever using an RV. They are the ones blowing the fuses. They're the ones with the septic spills. It's tough. I mean, as an owner, if you get too many of those in your campground, man, it makes for an interesting Friday night.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we just talking with campground owners down here, you know, some of them have been getting frustrated a little bit with the number of new campers and all the extra things that the new campers bring. But I think the campgrounds who have had a lot of success are the ones that maybe are a little bit more patient and have set up some really good programs and ways for their staff to come in along with these new campers and be like, this is how you do this. This is how you do this. We're going to help you set up your RV. And so, they've been able to really advocate for the industry with the new campers, and hopefully they keep coming back. I know it can be frustrating though. So
that's a lot of the patience, right? I mean, you're in the hospitality business, and then like Mark was saying, setting the expectations on your website, and letting people know what to expect, are two of the biggest hurdles, I think.
Yeah,
absolutely agree. Absolutely. I have Joe here talking about from a new build perspective. Are you experiencing an uptick in Canadian park development in the south, it's been very robust over the last 2 or 3 months. So I think Joss touched on this earlier, but I will say to you, in the last month alone, I've heard specific to Alberta from 3 or 4 developers who are working on either securing, finding land and finding property and asking for help with that, or have already jumped those hurdles and are maybe working on business plan sides and things like that. It's definitely, I think I have some friends in the banking industry as well. I think a lot of people's eyes are on camping and RVing specifically from an investment perspective. And I think it's going to be interesting the next couple of years, whether we see development. Joss, are you seeing new park development out there in BC?
Yeah, we got 4 I'm aware of that are being, one that's open up on the Sunshine Coast, another 300 site one that's going in a fairground because the fairground may not be as successful going forward on the island, and another one up at Sunshine Coast, and then a big one that's being 2 or 3 ones that are being I've heard about on First Nations land, but I don't know if they've turned and are starting to develop them. The other thing I'm hearing too is that there are a number of investment groups that are looking at the park bridge model and saying, that's quite a successful investment model, and so I think we're starting to see big companies looking at it as a potential to buy multiple parks. They're looking at buying ones that are or non-going concerns that they can convert into overnight RVing or park model RVing. Moving away from manufactured homes because they don't want the residential tenancy. They want to be that way. Some of them are based on pension funds. So in reality, they want to make sure it's a sustainable life and an ability for people who are retired to be able to go and visit places. So that's part of their motivation, and it fits in with their green mandate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know here in the U.S. they say that there's not enough sites. I guess, do you guys feel that in Canada too? Like there's not enough sites, you need more developments?
Definitely, site inventory is a huge issue. When you talk to RVers specifically, they're saying like, I love to go camping, I just don't have anywhere to do it. And so I think development is a great scenario. Obviously, there's going to be necessity for that market to balance, and we don't want to go the other way and have far too much site inventory either. So it's going to be interesting to see where the chips fall here.
We probably take more in British Columbia because over the last decade or 15 years, a large amount of plant has been purchased and redeveloped for other uses. I'm sure that's the same all over Canada. So there definitely is availability, especially if it's near water. And so I think we're going to see more development. Now, the only thing we could do with this is a bit more global warming and 2 months more of summer.
That would be great.
I'm down for that. So
I was wondering, Brian, do you know if Heather's on? I just wonder if she could talk about this park development stuff from her perspective.
She was. I think she disconnected that. Maybe come back to her in a minute or two.
It does.
Okay, yeah.
I know down here, I mean, I've been reading, around the popular sites at least, or the popular campground areas, if you don't book by the end of January, then you're not going to be getting anything for this next year. So, which is just incredible, for a lot of people just to book that early. It's just incredible. So.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing related to demographics too. I think people are number one, people want those days of kind of just heading out and finding a spot wherever you end up seem to be kind of over for the most part. People really want that confidence and reassurance that they're going to have a place to park when they get there. But I think it's also, like I said, I think it's a demographic thing where we're seeing, a shift to maybe more younger portions of the market and things like that. So, I think that stuff helps me, obviously, in terms of contactless check-in and things like that too, where you're pre-booking in advance and maybe making full payments in advance and things like that, which obviously are all factors contributing here for sure.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I want to go out to the Grand Canyon this next year. We're planning on doing a lot of camping, and I'm looking at the fact that if I'm going to make that trip, I have to start booking right after the holidays, and it's just crazy. You know, the trip would be like in June. So, if campers don't plan ahead, you know, they are going to be out of luck. So.
Well, Colleen makes a good point here in the chat as well. She's saying more development, but also more people to travel further, because there's lots of campgrounds in more rural areas. So I do think that stuff is important too. I think your association, again, your provincial associations are great at helping spread the word about camping specifically. But I think more work needs to be done on exposure to those groups that are kind of a little bit further off the beaten path. I know of so many personally that are absolutely stunning and incredible locations and have a ton to offer and just maybe aren't as well known or whatever. And sometimes that's the charm of it too, where it's not this big, crowded, hectic, crazy spot. But I think we could be doing better work in terms of, those full campgrounds could be sending people to certain maybe less exposed spots and things like that.
Well, I think what the pandemic did was it wiped away all the international travel, and it wiped away a lot of the long distance travel. So that was part of the problem that we faced. We picked it up with local, and I think that's what we've got to do as we come out of the pandemic and into recovery. We've got to make sure that we've got these trips planned, and we've got to be aggressive with our European market and with the American market, having them travel up through to Alaska and through or PEI or Ontario, and we've got to make. And I think Go RVing's been doing that with their trip planning models that they're trying to develop, and that's really on the right track. We've got to take that and we've got to boost that, and that's got to include these rural areas. And if you're not already involved with Go RV and you haven't claimed your listing or you haven't actually seen those trips, you should make sure you take a look.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that it's such a unique tool to kind of be able to populate along on a map and physically see the campgrounds, potentially on a route and be able to choose between them and things like that. I think that's a great tool for consumers and really unheard of and new in the market. And I do think it's going to help exposure for more rural parks and areas for sure.
Yeah. And I read a great article over the weekend that just kind of highlighted this. They were pointing out all the state parks around really popular national parks that maybe don't get as much traffic as the national parks, but they still offer a lot of the great views and the animals, the wildlife that people like to come see and stuff. And, that's probably a great opportunity too, is, to highlight those parks around those less popular state parks and stuff that still offer some really good things to do. So
yeah, well, I think Go RVing's tool specifically here in Canada not only populates that map with campgrounds, but also attractions and great restaurants and all kinds of things that are slowly populating as people are booking those trips and making reviews and things like that. And I think obviously with time it's going to get more and more dynamic, but it's really, really a huge benefit to campgrounds to be featured on those tools. They're going to really change the way bookings are made and trips are planned. RV trips specifically are planned in Canada for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think Heather's here, right?
Oh, no.
Can she hear us?
She's having some problems with her privacy settings on her iPhone. It's blocking her camera and microphone, so I don't know if she can hear us.
I saw someone was talking about respect and having a respect about and stuff. So
in the chat here, are you talking about this camping etiquette?
Yeah.
A really neat idea. An opportunity for parks to include a camping etiquette guide with the check-in package to save owners and campers grief throughout their stay. She's just saying she frequently saw reviews from seasoned campers with complaints about new campers that maybe don't understand the etiquette and basic acceptable rules we see. Oh,
here's something, and I'll put this in the chat box. This is kind of not really a plug for campgroundviews.com, but we know the guy who runs Campground Views, Mark Hope. He put together a neat little etiquette PDF that campgrounds can download. I've just put it in the chat box there. So any campground owners, if they want to look at it, I mean, that's something that you could easily just put together, print it, and then put together and give to campers too. So
That's a great idea. Love it.
And I know our board have been talking about having a campaign. We've been working with BC Parks and Parks Canada about having all kinds of things, camping with respect, be aware, camp with care. It talks not just about that, it's also about garbage, leaving things behind. It's about security. There's a whole raft of other ideas, and it'll be coming up with a poster too.
Great.
It's aimed at hopefully being eventually able to have a campaign that starts with when they rent or buy an RV and they see it all the way through. They see the same messaging all the way through. And it's aimed at this respect issue, which is part of that.
Yeah, I feel like that goes back to benefits of being a member of your association from an owner standpoint, having access to those kinds of resources and all kinds of education and training and things like that. So I guess I feel like that's a decent enough transition, isn't it?
We developed a national code of conduct too, didn't we? Yeah, we've got code of conduct, waiver program access, all kinds of really great resources as specifically for our members, which is awesome. So on that note, I guess I am going to invite Shane to make an announcement about some new resources available to members. Well, to everybody.
Ooh, we like new things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, new beginnings, right? I think everybody knows that one of CCRVC's top priorities has been education and how to develop ways to educate campground owners and their staff. It's just what we've been talking about today. Providing etiquette manuals and everything else. There's so many things that could be of use for campground owners to run their business more successfully. So, I really appreciate this chance to make this announcement. And I understand that Ben doesn't even know what I'm about to say.
Poor Ben.
Does anyone else?
I'm always the last one to know. That's okay, Brian. That's cool.
Now, the Canadian RV and camping industry hasn't had a national conference for over 10 years. And we held them in person in the 1990s, late 1990s into the 2000s. And we missed that chance to do something. So, we're really excited to announce the inaugural Canadian Outdoor Hospitality Conference and Expo, January the 18th to 21st, and we're really excited to work with CampCon, who's developed a real professional platform for campgrounds to sit in on some educational seminars, network, and just learn. And this is, we're really, pumped up about this chance. It wasn't something, that was on the radar, but, with COVID and the fact that, campground owners are probably going to be stuck close by their computers because they can't go anywhere down south. We just thought it was a real opportune time to set this up, and Kara and Ben and Heather have been really diligent working, getting this all set up, and we're really excited to make this announcement. So I understand that things are live.
Yeah, this was coming, Shane. Did you have any idea, Kara?
So I think the link is live, and we'll be communicating how people can look at the link and what we've got in store and everything. And we're really pumped up about what we're going to have in store for everybody.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I know for me as a former campground owner, the amount of resources and sessions, the networking capabilities, all of that stuff is going to be really, really, really valuable to operators especially here in Canada, where we haven't really had access to this type of event for a long time. I think I'm really excited to see everybody gather and share this experience in this kind of virtual way. I know it's different and new, and I definitely wish we could be gathering like the old days, but I think this is the very next best thing. I'm really, really impressed with CampCon and all of their work and everything they've produced for us so far. And yeah, we're really excited to see this kind of launch a national conference for Canada again. Maybe
I missed this. When were you guys planning on hosting that?
It's January 18th to the 21st, 2020. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So
I think Brian was going to tell me on January 17th. That's probably when he was going to tell me.
I mean, Ben, you keep telling me you love secrets, so I keep trying to indulge your wants and desires. That's all I'm trying to do, Ben.
So many surprises. So I think, definitely watch email inboxes and things like that. There's all kinds of communications going out about this today and in the coming weeks, as we make announcements about things like keynote speakers and sessions and so many really awesome things for the event. I would love to hear from Brian specifically about plans for January.
For me, for plans in January?
Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say.
You want to know what people can expect?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I wasn't even prepared for this.
Yeah, right.
You did not warn me at all that this was coming. It's going to be like we have. You've seen it, Kara and Shane, Unlimited, right? It's going to be like this. We have this great virtual platform where people can like engage with each other, because that's what's really been missing, right? We want to get together. We want to handshake. We want to have that eye contact, and we can't. And so I feel like what we're trying to replicate here is that networking experience as much as we possibly can, because that's the most important thing, is allowing people to connect with each other and get as close and as possible as they can in this environment, right? And so we've got cool things like speed dating style networking, right? Where you can have meetups and you can talk to somebody that maybe your friend, maybe you've never met them before, but one-on-one video chats. We're going to have things where you can interact with the vendors and do workshops, and where 16 people can be on camera together and have this big group discussion with chats and polls and prizes and games and all kinds of stuff. And so we got 44 sessions or something, Kara, and like 22 workshops. And I mean, there's just an abundance of knowledge and things that people are going to be able to do in this conference that really have never been done before, like you said, in Canada. We're super excited.
Yeah, and the one another good thing about this is so many suppliers have come to us and said, hey, how can we market to your campgrounds? And we didn't have a conference nationally, and this is going to be a fantastic way for the suppliers to sign up and get introduced maybe for the first time to Canadian campground owners. So, for sure that's going to be one of the biggest benefits to bring everybody together. Campground owners are looking for some good suppliers at reduced prices or whatever, and this is going to provide that way for everybody to get introduced to each other.
And we really thought about that, Shane. Like, that's a big part of the conference is the expo experience, so that not only can the attendees connect with the vendors, but the vendors actually have the tools to sell their products. So you've got the ability to book meetings with people, one-on-one video. You can chat, direct message with people. You can do a live video stream. Like, you could set up your booth theoretically, like you were in a trade show, and do a live stream of it. I mean, and so we're really just trying to make the experience as close to in-person as we possibly can get, right? For everybody.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I really think that kind of connection stuff is missing in a lot of ways for all of us right now. So I'm really, really excited for the opportunity to welcome and host and meet so many individuals from the industry. And obviously, none of this is Canada specific, but for sure there's been kind of a missing component here in Canada for a while with this, and I'm really excited to experience it. Can't wait.
Further what Brian said, everybody's missing that that face-to-face, you know, have a beer and talk to everybody and see how it's going and everything. And what we've found in some of the meetings is, you know, these campground owners are doing a Zoom call for the first time, and they're going, geez, it's so good to, you know, to be able to virtually chat with fellow campground owners and see how everybody's doing. So, you know, this is another great, you know, chance. Again, everybody had hoped that it would be in person, but this is, you know, this is the next best thing where, you know, when campground owners can talk with other campground owners and actually see them and just get, you know, just get a better feel of how things going and get some ideas. So, you know, this is a great chance.
We've got the beer thing all for you too, Shane. Like, we're going to have networking lounges at night. We're 16
Well, now we're talking, Brian.
Drink a beer and talk to each other.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted them to ship beer to everyone so that we could, like, you know, do drinking and networking and
You are shipping
make
beer
it kind of a party.
You have to live in Canada to get the beer, Ben.
Hey,
Well-
get your swag down in the States.
Yeah. I guess sometimes Woodall's is sponsoring a craft beer donation.
Yeah, why not?
That's a good point. So, and listen, Heather is with us too. She had problems with the privacy settings, but like Heather worked for months with me on this, on the education sessions and the planning, and we're actually going to mail out swag bags to people with all kinds of really cool, neat items in them, literature, education, all that kind of stuff. And so, like, the amount of work that she put into this is equal, if not more, than what I've done. And so, super proud to be a partner with her and CampCon, and looking forward to what you guys can do with you.
Yeah, I know. So I'll speak for myself and just say I'm so thankful for the expertise of both Brian and Heather through all of this. It's incredibly valuable to have both your, you know, you both have tons of knowledge in terms of shows and expos and things specifically, and we are so thankful for that support as we get this event together. There was no way CCRVC could have facilitated this on its own. But this type of partnership obviously is going to benefit everybody industry-wide, which is really great.
Are you still looking for input on speakers and content? And
yeah, all of that. So we've got our agenda built out on the website, which you'll see it's going to go wide here in about, I don't know, what, 2 minutes or something, Kara? Everybody's going to have their inboxes full of stuff. Yes, while we have the agenda and the classes kind of built out, we have not finalized any of the speakers yet. So
yeah, we would love any sort of contributions from operators or other industry professionals about the types of sessions they'd love to see and consume through those 4 days. We have lots of great ideas. We do have commitments from some pretty great individuals already, but we are diligently working to make that as dynamic and full and educational as possible over those 4 days.
Yeah, I'll just say that, you know, it's not CCRVC's conference, it's you know, everybody's conference together. So we'd love to get everybody's participation, and we want this to be a benefit for everybody.
Well, that's great. Yeah, that's great.
Leslie volunteered to do a humor piece.
Yeah, Leslie will do the comedy one night at one of the definitely, I'll be there for that.
Yes, I've seen the show. It's well worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Leslie owns a campground just near, actually one of the closest to the campground I used to own. She's always been a great counterpart of mine. I look up to her. She's a very strong woman who's been operating her park for, I think, 30 years, really successful, and I look up to her a lot. Can't wait for the comedy.
I think, well, is that all for the CampCon stuff? Or are we...
I don't know.
We had another question come in. I just didn't want to move away from the conference.
Well, what are your thoughts, Ben?
Until it was finished.
What do you think, Ben? Tell us.
Tell us.
Premier industry journalist.
About the conference?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's exciting. So, I mean, we've been doing conferences, you know, I've been to a couple virtual ones this year. And so it'll be interesting to see what it looks like, you know, on the networking and educational side. So the conferences have been real good. I know a lot of people miss being able to go in person to conferences and seeing each other. So any way you can network and see each other's faces and talk with each other, I think that's going to be positive. So it definitely can't hurt anything. So, although Brian's face may hurt him. So maybe.
I'm just I can't handle your such exuberant optimism here, Ben. Like
I know.
I know.
Ben is in journalism and not sales. I'm sorry, Ben. That'd be what I did again.
What you got for us, Ben? Let's bring another question.
Well, I was just wondering because I think we had another question come in, and it wasn't. I didn't want to end the conference talk until we were done with the conference talk. So, any indication if the tour-based caravans or adventure tours that camp have survived this pandemic, and did they find a way to pivot?
I think that's really location specific. Again, I think, well, and probably more variables even just than location. I know there are some tour operators here in Alberta that really struggled this year. Travel Alberta has done a really great job at promoting really local provincial traffic, and we're pretty fortunate to have some of the most beautiful spots in the world, if I do say so myself. So I think that stuff helps, but I think it's been tough for those operators, and I know a lot of them are anxious or very welcoming to partner with campground operators and do packaging and things like that wherever possible to help bring traffic through their doors too.
Yeah. I would think with like the new, I think we touched on this earlier with the new campers coming to the market, they're looking, some of them are used to having these prepackaged, vacations where, you go to Mexico and everything's you book it's all taken care of in one place, or the tour agent, or Europe or whatever. So I think, there's definitely, I think, a growing market. I know I've seen some caravan tours or RV tours, where they're putting it all together 7 to 14 days and, they involve campgrounds. And so maybe that's going to really grow due to this pandemic. So
I think one of the things that's going to be a break on it is that a lot of campground operators don't want to dedicate inventory to tour operators.
Right.
They don't want to discount the inventory. They don't want to hold inventory. They don't need to at certain times of the year, July and August. And that's one of the hurdles they face. The further north and the more rural you get, that's not going to be so much of an issue. But it really is an issue in southern British Columbia. Air Canada has been trying to do itinerary trips with a tour wholesaler, and they're finding it extremely difficult to get people to even give them two sites. They're looking at a 7-day release, which is way too soon. Most of the people would like to see a 60-day if they're going to go down that road. So I think the market, we've got so much business in certain parts that it's going to be really difficult for these tour companies to get a foothold or get people involved. Plus, the other side of the coin is Parks Canada and BC Parks. I'm not sure if Alberta Parks are the same. They won't rent to these people. They won't lock up site because of the political feedback that they get from Canadians that say, well, these sites were booked by a tour company and I can't get there.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a chance to get it. So I think it's going to be tough for them to break into the market in any large numbers.
Yep. I definitely agree, Jess. Totally.
Well, I received your email on the conference. Look, it came through. Exciting news. CCRVC announces annual conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good email.
Who knew?
Who knew? Yeah, I didn't know. I
was in the dark, like you.
Yeah. I want to say we're super, super excited. It's going to be a full couple of months getting ready. Any input or feedback, anything like that, please send that stuff our way. You can respond to that email you just got. All of you just got. But otherwise our contact is info@ccrvc.ca. We are happy to hear from anybody at any time. I guess anybody else have any closing thoughts?
No, just thanks for making this all Canada today, and really appreciate it. And And thanks
That's a
everybody.
weird coincidence, wasn't it, Shane?
It was a good coincidence, Brian.
It's strange.
Just stay safe and stay healthy.
Lori's asking, do you have to be a member to get the email? No, you just needed to be on our contact list, which I think that I do have you, Lori, but I can forward it to you. I'm sure I have your email address. But if you don't see it, please reach out to me. I'll get it your way. Brian, can I put the link here in the chat box too to the website?
You want me to put it, or you want?
I'm typing it now.
All right.
Good.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody?
No,
I don't. I mean,
it was really helpful to get to know more about the camping industry in Canada, how you guys were infected, and it's so interesting, like West versus East too. So just those nuances, and looking forward to getting to know more about you guys.
Yeah. So, I think everybody, some people, assume it's just, all snow right now up there. But, I've been learning more about Victoria and some of those areas in British Columbia that stay a little bit warmer and stuff. So that's kind of neat to learn more about those areas and how the snowbird traffic and stuff is flowing to those areas. So that's kind of cool. So,
Brian. Perfect. The right link is in your chat, but in the chat now. If anybody needs to reach out to us, please feel free. Otherwise, I will see most of you next week.
Okay.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a good week.
Thank you. Yep. Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.